Welcome to Hardback Life. It's time for stories, sass, and strong opinions. Let's turn the page. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Becca. And today with us, we have indie author Kristie Wolf. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for
Of
coming.
course. And Kristie Wolf just dropped her most recent publication called Too Guarded to Love, and it is book 3 in the Project Viper series. So we would love for you to just introduce yourself and give us a little bit more background on the Project Viper series.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristie Wolf, and I write steamy romantic suspense. Project Viper series is about a team of special forces amputees, and the military has given them bionic weaponized prosthetics and turned them into super soldiers. So book 1, Too Dangerous to Love, was my debut novel back in October of 2023. And since then, I've published the second book, Too Lethal to Love, and the third book, Too Guarded to Love, came out on September 18th.
Are there more in this series, or is this book 3 like it?
Nope, there'll be more. There's 4 guys on my military team, and I plan to finish up the series next year, towards the end of next year. And I'm also doing a prequel that'll come out in July.
We were just having a conversation the other day about niches. How did you happen upon military romance? Like, how is that your chosen genre?
I thought I was going to be just like a straight up contemporary author. The first 2 books that I wrote that will not see the light of day unless they get some serious editing. If there's anything salvageable in them, because I had no clue what I was doing. They were just mainstream contemporary. And then I was looking for something new to write in 2016. And I saw a picture in a book. It was a book of wounded warriors by a photographer named Michael Stokes. And he did this book called Always Loyal. And somebody at work had showed me this book, and it was most of the models were they were veterans, and a lot of them were amputees. And I saw that book and I said, wow, I want to write about an amputee. The military is really near and dear to me. My dad's a Vietnam veteran. My husband is a Marine, and my son, I always knew he'd wind up in the military, and he left for the Navy last year. So
Aw.
there were plenty of signs. Yes. So I thought that maybe I would write another contemporary, maybe about a veteran and his service dog, or a veteran and his physical therapist. And then in 2016, I was at the New Jersey Romance Writers Conference. It was my first foray into like the writing community. I didn't have any author friends. I wrote my books all by myself the first 2 times. I'd never even taken a class on how to write a book. I read a book about how to
Okay.
write a book. I'd read plenty of romance novels, so I totally knew what I was doing. So I went there, and I met an editor, and she was talking about the type of books that she would like to see come across her desk. And she said that she would love to see a book about like DNA enhanced soldiers and like super smart STEM type heroines. And I was like, well, if I take my amputee and I give him a prosthetic that shoots deadly lasers.
Yeah, you were
And
like
all of
halfway
that
there.
technology was invented by a super smart scientist. Here we go. And so that's how the Project Viper series was born. And I realized that I really like blowing stuff up, and I love to write fight scenes. And all of that adrenaline and intensity that's going on with the external plot, I get to transfer that into my character's relationship.
I love that.
I love to hear people's stories on like how their books develop and like where the idea comes from. Like never in a million years would I have been like, yeah, I'm going to write a book about a military guy with a prosthetic that shoots lasers. Like that just never would have come to my mind at all. Well, before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of everything and ask you some more questions, we always like to start out with sharing what we're reading. So what are you currently reading right now?
5th book in a series by Danielle Jensen, I believe, called The Bridge Kingdom.
What is it
Okay.
about?
It's a romantasy,
Okay.
and it is about this, she really doesn't say if it's past. I'm assuming it's in the past because there's no running water, maybe. I don't know.
Mm.
But yeah, it's about several, warring nations, and the kings and the queens, and arranged marriages, and spies and betrayals, and things like that. I'm really enjoying it. I thought the series was going to be over, and then
Okay.
I popped on Audible in the car yesterday. I went to a book event yesterday called Ink and Indie on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, so it was about an hour and a half from my house. And I knew I only had a few minutes left in the book. So before I pulled out of the parking lot on my way home, I hopped on Audible to like find another book to listen to on the way home. And much to my surprise, there was a book of hers that was coming out in October. So
Ooh,
I pre-ordered that, but then I saw that was book 6 and I'm like, wait a minute, I just finished book 4. So I got book 5. So I'm very,
That's
very
so
excited.
exciting. That's a piece
The
of
way she
news.
did it was she did 3 duets, and so, like, the first 2 books followed one couple, and then you were introduced, to everybody else, but then the second
Mhm.
2 books followed another couple, wrapped up their story, so it's kinda like 3 interconnected standalones that were but those standalones were each written into 2 books that had a cliffhanger.
okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was really interesting the way she did it.
That's
Yeah,
very cool.
series are like a whole beast for me. Like I have to be locked in and ready to go when there's like so many books in the series. So,
Exactly, yep.
Cassie, what are you reading right now?
So I'm actually reading, it's not an arc technically, but it's an author I've read before. And she posted on Instagram if anybody would want to read like a really rough draft of her next book in the series. So I'm doing that.
Okay.
Nice.
So it's actually pretty cool. So I get to like put little comments in. It's like a Google Doc. So I'm putting little comments in and like checking grammar. Like I feel so official.
Oh my God, I love that. Wow.
Yeah,
You really like the arc reviewing.
I do. I love
You
that.
found that as a niche.
I do. What about
I'm
you?
reading Phantasma,
Yeah.
a dark romantasy, and I've had it on my TBR for a while, and I very much have turned into a mood reader. I never used to be a mood reader, and now I am apparently. And so I opened up my Kindle Unlimited, and I was like, what am I gonna read? And I was like, you know what? Sure. And so I clicked on it, and it's not what I expected at all. I kind of went into it a little bit blind, because I had forgotten what it was about. Um, it's basically the premise is she's a witch who comes from a family of necromancers, which basically are people who raise the dead. And her mother dies, and she takes on her mother's power and has to carry on her family's legacy. And it's real interesting. I'm really curious to see where it goes. And then I'm listening to The Grieving Brain on Audible.
Mm,
So I'm really kind of hitting dark romantasy, but then I'm hitting like neuroscience and the brain on the other end. So
yeah.
I don't really know what mood that is, but well, Cassie, do you want to give a little, I guess, background of like how we met
Yeah.
Kristie and came across her?
So we came across your books at we've told you this, but at with an Oddbird pop-up shop in Bel Air, Maryland, I think, right, Becca? At Bel Air. I grabbed the last copy of Too Dangerous to Love. I do have to give a moment for the cover because like I did very much judge the book by the cover for a second, and I had to like he's just so beautiful. So I have to give it its credit, but I am super excited because like Becca said, it's such a niche category of romance, and I have not read any military romance. I don't know if it's just I don't see them as much, or I'm just really into ice hockey romances for some reason I cannot figure out. But I am
Cassie's like the ice hockey girl, and I'm the camp
love them.
counselor romance
Yeah.
girl.
Uh, well,
Yeah.
So
Cassie, next time I write a super soldier book in the Project Viper world, and I'm looking for like, some sort of sport that one of them played, I will consider ice hockey. So you can
yes.
have your ice hockey
I
and your
love that.
military together.
Perfect. I don't know why. I don't know if I know any ice hockey players, but I just love ice hockey books. So, yeah, I was just super excited for this is going to be my first military romance read.
And then I know when we officially, like in person, well, I think I saw you and met you on my own because Cassie wasn't with me. And then when we both officially met you together at the
Yeah.
Sweet Nothings Book
Yep.
Co. Grand opening in Baltimore, you mentioned that you used to have more of a desk job. So we were just curious for you to talk about how you took the leap into writing and what made you decide to kind of like leave that life behind, or if you still balance both. Like, I don't know if you still
Yeah,
have a desk job.
I still balance. I definitely still have a desk job.
Okay.
But it's a unique desk job. I work from home and I've worked from home since I was pregnant. I was very fortunate that I was able to find, a career that let me stay home and be home with my kids. And
Yes.
so I've been with the same company for over 20 years. And I work 2 to 3 hours a day. Sometimes I work
Nice.
8 hours a day. Sometimes I work a half hour a day. It
Yeah.
really is on my schedule and it depends what needs to be done. And it's a family owned company. They are fantastic and they will never let me leave.
That's
So,
amazing.
if someday I become a best-selling author and Netflix calls and if my books become like Twilight or whatever, I will still be working for my company
I
because
love that.
they have ways of keeping me. They're devious. They send me charcuterie boards every few months just to
Ooh.
say,
How can you leave?
I know, and they know where I live. They came to my book, my book release party a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's so
My
sweet.
friends and I out to dinner, and then they made me go to a bar and party like I was 30. I'm not 30. I was miserable the next day because I was so tired, but it was lots and lots of fun. Totally worth it.
Aw.
Yeah, and so we work in government marketing technology, which
Okay.
gives me
Wow.
a lot of ideas for my books, like my
Yeah.
Nights Apart, my small town thriller.
Mhm.
That book was a product of my job and things, that I learned from technology leaders in the country.
That's amazing. I also just like love a supportive workplace. I love
Yes.
that.
They're awesome. We
Oh.
Well, I'm sure, it's very intimidating to make the leap, especially it sounds like you have a very supportive work environment.
Mhm.
And then you kind of had to decide to like make the leap into writing alongside doing this desk jobs. If there's anyone out there listening who wants to make the leap into writing, and I know Cassie's toyed with the idea of writing, just gonna put you on blast. What suggestions would you have for aspiring writers out there?
It's not a solitary endeavor. You need to find your people and you need to find your writing community. And I said
Mhm.
before how when I went to New Jersey, the New Jersey Romance Writers Conference, that was my first jump into the writing world. And that really changed my perspective on things. Just like you have your team at work, you need your writing team, you need your people.
Mm,
And so, your friends who aren't writers are going to tell you, well, just, you know what, you've got a lot going on. Just get to that when you can. Or like, yeah, that's a really, really good, Cassie. Your book was great. No, 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 that's not what you want people to tell you. You want
Yeah.
people to tell you, your book is great, but this is what needs to be fixed, right?
mm,
Mhm.
When you send your book off to an editor and you get a rejection and your friends say, you tried your hardest. They don't know what they're talking about. Try again. And they're not understanding how you're crying for 3 days. Your writer friends will, and they will
Yeah.
know what to say to you. You will have a big bitch fest about how the editor didn't know what they were talking about, how you were wonderful. And then you will all sit down and realize, oh, that editor did make some good points. And let's figure out how to fix this, right? And so you need people who understand what you're doing. So that would be my
mm.
biggest suggestion is find your team. And you have to it's so super hard to put writing off until the end of the day
Mhm.
because, you have your work commitments, you have your family commitments, you need to exercise, you need to clean the house. And I still struggle with that. And if I keep pushing writing off, it doesn't happen.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so, whether that means getting up a little earlier, taking your hour during lunch and instead of hanging out with, your buddies, wherever whatever it is that you do, going off on your own. One of the changes that I made when my kids were little is when I would take them to activities, to swim team or dance or something like that. Instead of sitting with the other moms and chit chatting, I went to the side to my own table, to my own corner by myself, and I worked on my book because that was
Okay.
the only time, with littles. That was time when I didn't
Yeah,
have
you
to be
gotta take
mom,
what you
right?
can
I
get
didn't have
for
to
sure.
be. I used to teach aerobics at like a community center athletic club type of thing. And they had a nursery and you could put your kid in the nursery for up to 2 hours a day. And I would go and I wouldn't sometimes, I wouldn't work out. I would put my daughter in the nursery for 2 hours.
Mhm.
I'd go find a table and I'd write. And so you
Yeah.
need to be creative too. There's time in the day. You just need to find it and work your schedule around it. And so just keep trying, be persistent. If it doesn't work one day, try it again the next day.
No, those are like two
Very good
really good
advice.
pieces of advice,
Yes.
especially the first one, like really hit because I think that is applicable to really any career. You have to find your people because at
Mhm.
the end of the day, like you said, your friends don't get it, your spouse doesn't get it. You're really so into your niche and your career and your profession. And so I appreciate that advice. I also appreciate the like being creative with your schedule because
Mhm.
being a mother of a toddler is wild. So
Yeah.
finding the time for the things that I love and my interests and the things that, I am really invested in my career and things like that. So yeah, two great pieces of advice across the board, not even just for
Yes.
aspiring writers, just
Yeah.
people in general.
Yeah.
Just
I
living your
mean,
best
I
life.
work all over the place. I have a lap desk for my car. I have two actually, and I look like a police officer. I have one that attaches to my steering wheel because it's easier. Like when I do regular, like my job work, it's easier to work from two screens.
Mhm.
So I have two screens. I have one on my lap. I have one on the steering wheel lap desk, and I look like I'm a police officer in my car. And I write from, I bring my lap desk. I've written at rugby games, at swim team, at baseball, at dive meets, dance. That laptop goes everywhere with me
I
because
love that.
whenever you have a spare few minutes and there aren't kids demanding your attention,
Yeah.
or you bring your notebook or, whatever, and make notes on your phone, talk into your phone, whatever time you can find to think about or work on your book and get some sort of thing written
Mhm.
is going to push you in the right direction.
I love that. Well,
Yeah,
since
thank
you've
you for all
spent
that. That was great.
so much time on your love for writing, Cassie, do you want to hit the first question for the discussion about specifically Kristie's books?
So, you kind of told us a little bit, the inspiration behind your Project Viper
Mhm.
series was, um, you said you wanted to do something with amputees and then you went to that conference. Was there more to who inspired certain characters or certain things like that?
Yeah, sure. Oh, the guy on the cover of Too Dangerous to Love.
We love him.
Yep, he is a cover model, and his name is BT Urella, and he is minus one leg, and so
Wow.
he's an amputee, and he's a veteran, he's a wounded veteran, and so the book that I was telling you about, where I saw the photos of the wounded warriors, he
Mhm.
was on the cover, and so when I decided to publish my book, and I was looking for a cover model, I said to my author bestie Aria Wyatt. I was like, hey, like it's really important to me to have a veteran on the cover. And she said, Google BT Urella. He's an amputee. And when I did, I was like, oh my God, like that's the guy. And so that was super special to have him on the cover.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And in the book, the character's name is Christopher Amoroso. And he was named for my good friend and chosen family that I grew up with. Our families are super tight. His sister was a bridesmaid in my wedding. Chris was a Port Authority police officer, and on 9/11, he rescued two groups of people from the towers, and he went back in for a third,
Wow.
and he didn't make it out. So he's a real
My
life hero.
gosh.
So when
Yeah.
I named my first published hero, it was a no-brainer.
Oh,
You
I
know what
love
else?
Yeah.
that. Oh
Name that
no,
is
I'm
something
gonna
like him.
cry a little bit. That was so sweet.
I think that's like so just like a side squirrel moment. I think the power of reading right there is not only like the story that an author writes, but even if we don't know what the emotions and the meaning behind the characters and the story is, it's there. And I'm now going to remember that every time I pick up a book and every time I'm introduced to a new character. You just like never you just never
Yeah, you
know.
don't
Mhm.
know, sometimes we just pick names randomly out of a hat or, details and things like that. But a lot of time they have some sort of meaning to us,
Yeah.
even if it's something like a little silly, like in book 3, she loves her cowboy boots. I
I
love
love
my
that.
cowboy boots. I own 12 pair of cowboy
Oh
boots.
my goodness, I love that.
So like when I wanted to give her something a little special, like I gave her what was important to me.
I love
I love
that.
that.
I need
I
like an
love how
emotional moment.
I love how personal things are in this series for you. Like
Yeah,
the meaning
sometimes
behind it
they are.
all.
Yeah.
I love that.
And each book centers on a different MMC and their relationship, correct?
Yeah, so they're
Okay.
interconnected standalones. There's 4 guys on the team.
Okay, so did you start the first one knowing that that's kind of how you wanted to structure the series? And yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, 4 guys. I don't know why I chose 4, but the four guys, and I knew that they would, I knew who they were going to fall in love with, and I knew, a little bit about each of them. And then as I
Awesome.
wrote the first book, they kind of grew.
but did you know what order you were going to center on each character? Like, did you
Yes.
know? Okay.
Yep, and that came based on who they fell in love with because I decided that, book 1, her best friend was gonna be in book 2, and then in book 2, he had a twin sister who was gonna fall in love with, one of the other ones, and then that left, Lincoln, my fighter pilot, as the last guy.
Okay.
Very
So
cool.
once I kind of figured that out,
The
there was a
connections.
sequence that had to go based on introducing the characters.
You had to imagine and create different facets of government and military and technology How difficult was that? Did you have to do real life research to do all of that?
I had to make rules for my world, based on what
Yeah.
these guys can do and where they came from and, the rules of the program and things like that. And so that was a little, tricky to figure out. But because of what I do with my job with government technology,
Yeah.
I'm not a technology person. I'm on the marketing end, but there were lots of people that I could talk to.
Okay.
So as I was writing the book, I was able to, email chief technology officers and the like from the military and from like Veterans Affairs and that and be like, hey, like, this is what I'm writing about. This is what I envision. This is the paragraph that I just wrote to explain this. First of all, is, like, what do you think of this? Like, what buzzwords should I use? Like, what can I use to get this point across, but still keep it so high level that I didn't lose anybody?
Yeah.
Because when I was talking about that editor who, said she wanted to see something about DNA enhanced soldiers, she also gave me the advice where you can't let the technology, because I told her about my story, about my idea. And she said, you can't let the technology take over the story. Your story is first and foremost a romance.
Yeah.
And so when I explain what they can do, I do it in 2 sentences.
Okay.
A sentence here or a sentence there throughout the book. There's not like paragraphs and pages. You don't care what you don't care what kind of chip is implanted in the back of their necks, right? You just need to know there's a chip implanted in the back of their necks that networks to their brain and the technology in their arm and lets them shoot deadly lasers.
That's fair.
That's all we care about.
I appreciate this because I have a great controversial thing that I'm going to say. And I think I've said it on an episode before. Maybe I've just said it to Cassie. My
Probably
biggest gripe with books sometimes is the very specific detailing that I don't need. And so I always tell people when Harry Potter comes up, I always say, I don't need to know about the bristles on a broomstick.
It's important to know so you know how fast the brooms go.
So I appreciate that you took that into consideration and didn't go into the detail about all of the inner workings of where the chip is and how it does what. I don't care. The chip's there. It does what it does. Out comes laser. Done.
Exactly. Yep. And so I really tried to keep that in mind, but my contacts were extremely helpful and giving me ideas and saying, oh, like, that's a really cool word. Like, let's use that word.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Or offering me ways to explain what I knew that I wanted to do, but I didn't quite know how to word it.
How spicy are these books?
The door is wide open.
Yes.
Yeah, wide open. I've been told, like 3.5, pushing a 4.
that's a
on the
good
Chili
score.
Pepper scale. Yeah. Each book has 3 or 4 sex scenes.
Okay.
And this last one has the most in it. But they're there for a reason. And so, a
love
good
that.
sex scene should move the story along. The characters should learn something about themselves or question something or fight about it or what have you. And so, I felt like it all belonged in there.
How was the process of writing sex scenes, but also this came up in another author interview that we did, but choosing what words to use for body parts?
It's a challenge because one of my pet peeves when I'm reading and so much when I'm writing is repeated words. That makes me crazy. I listen to a lot of books because I don't have, because when I have free time and I can sit down, I'm writing, right? And so I was listening to a wildly popular book over the past year or so, 2 years, and I was in the car and I had my headphones in and I had told my husband about the book, right? And so I'm cringing as I'm listening to it. And he looks at me and he's like, what's your problem? He's like, is it that like whatever? And I'm like, she used the word house in the same paragraph 5 times.
Ooh.
And so like when I'm listening to that or I'm reading it, it takes me out of the story because my brain starts editing as I'm listening to it. Like this is how you could have fixed it. This is what I would have done. And so when you're writing a sex scene, there's only so many there's
Only so many
not another
parts
word for
involved.
hand, right? Or you know what I mean? There's only so many words for penises that you can use. You know, I'm not calling it a swollen member like in the Fabio books when I, reading when I grew up. It's nobody's rod.
Yeah.
And so,
Excellent.
and so it makes it difficult. Totally. And so there's a lot of rewriting in the sex scenes. And I also, it's like, sometimes I'll have a critique partner read it and they'll be like, does she have 3 hands? Because
Mm,
I lose track.
I didn't even think about that. That's
Yeah,
such a good
you lose
point.
track of body parts. Sometimes I'll be like, I'll say to my husband, just stand there, and I'll be like, okay, this is here and this is here, and can she feasibly reach from like here to like when you're moving people around? I have a critique partner who used to yell at her editor. She's traditionally published, and her editor used to always call her out on teleporting,
Mm,
where like you don't put on the page how a person, and not like beginning of a chapter, but like in like the same paragraph or scene,
Mhm.
like you don't say how a person got across the room, right? You don't mention that they walked across the room or that they switched rooms or something like that. And so I try to remember that in my sex scenes, right? Like,
mm,
if the hand moves from like the head to another part of the body, we want to see, the path it's traveling. And and
That's
sometimes,
fair.
yeah, and sometimes logistically it doesn't work.
Yeah.
mm.
Or like you have to find a enticing way to do that also.
Right. Or like, okay, if they're making eye contact, right?
Yes.
There are just some it's not possible to make eye contact when you're doing certain things.
That's true.
Or
This is
like
excellent.
like if you like okay, when a woman is giving man oral sex, right? And she's like on her knees, like does he like where does he feel her hair like brushing against his body? Like just like things like
So
that. Like
true.
I like to put in details like that, but I'm like, is it possible? Like where would he feel it? How long is her hair?
That's such a detail I would not have thought of either.
No.
I try to think of all the senses.
Oh, this is great. Those are those are just things you don't think about though. So I
No.
appreciate the like
And
flat out
I don't
honesty.
think a sex scene is done until if it doesn't turn me on, it's not going to turn anybody else on. And so, when I'm editing that sex scene, and my husband works from home too. And until I text him and I'm be like, "Are you busy right now?" The sex scene is not done.
Cassie, you're probably you're
I'm
probably boiling over.
my my husband knows I read books with smut, but I don't show him it. Like I don't allow him to actually read the book that
Cassie
I read.
is a big fat prude. Big fat prude.
Since opening up to this genre of reading, but unless he goes, or like Becca has had him read it before, that's probably the only time he has actually heard some of the things that I've read. I
Meanwhile, I'm not shy at all about the books I read. So my husband like walks around the house and like jokes with me. And my favorite thing to say that my husband says is whenever I tell him I'm gonna like start like a new like smutty book or whatever, he'll say to me, "Oh, make sure you buy 2 copies." And at first when he said that to me, I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "One that can stay dry and one that can get wet."
So I should write a super soldier with a bionic penis.
I love that.
And bionic boobs. A female with bionic boobs, and call it
Yeah.
Too Busty to Love.
Oh my gosh, stop it.
That's great. Well, aside from all of the sex talk, what other themes do you hope that readers take away from your books?
One of the themes in all of my books, and not just the Viper series, Knife to the Heart, is found family. And that's really important to me. Being the daughter of a Vietnam veteran with severe PTSD, my dad spent a lot of time at Veterans Affairs at the, with their doctors and their therapists and all the different, groups that he went to and things like that all my life. And so growing up, at any given holiday or family get together or barbecue, there was always a veteran there. Somebody who didn't have family to spend time with, or just, people that my dad had be befriended. And so, they became part of the family. Kristie, my character, is named after. We are not biologically related, but we are family.
Yeah.
And, so those bonds the family that you choose, those bonds that you nurture that way, that's what I would love for, for people to take away from my books. Like, family is who we choose.
I love that.
Yeah,
I did-
especially in knowing the book. Sorry, Cassie.
That's okay.
Especially in knowing that the book is, like a romance and there
Yeah.
is smut and things. It's so nice that there's other content because
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it earlier, like sex needs to drive the plot and it shouldn't be like the main focus because that's not real life. So I
Right,
appreciate that.
exactly. The second book that I wrote, the contemporary, the better of the two that need a lot of work. I pitched that one to editors when I went to the New Jersey Romance Writers Conference in 2016. And I remember the one editor, I mean, she rejected it, but she gave me a lot of great feedback. And she said she loves that I gave my characters friends.
Mm.
And so that's something that I always like to do. Like I always like them to have, aside from the character, the hero that they fall in love with or the heroine they fall in love with, I always give them some sort of support system. And just logistically wise, it's great to share information when you're having a conversation with someone else and things like that. But it gives you a lot of good insight into their backstory, and it shows loyalty. It shows that those bonds are
Mm.
important to them. It
Mhm.
talks about the things that they learned together during their childhood and stuff like that.
I love
I
that.
love that. I feel like found family is a big theme with like currently because I do feel like a lot of people might whereas in the past you accept family no matter like what that they might be like emotionally abusive whatever and you just accept them and the saying is family is family whatever but I feel like maybe with the generation under Specca they are really just being like that's not an excuse to treat people badly like I'd rather have the people I find and that care about me versus like
Mhm.
just because they're blood, and I love that a lot of authors have really embraced that idea.
There's a song, and by Harry Styles, take that with what you will, about my music taste. But there's a song by Harry Styles, and it's called Matilda. And there's a line that I always bring up to people, and it says, you can have a party and not invite your family because they never showed you love. And
Mhm.
I feel like that's something I think about all the time when I think about found family is, not that people can't have found family and also have a family that love
Right.
them.
Yeah, oh, yeah, of course.
But, that I think about that all the time because, like Cassie said, like, it's just because you're blood doesn't mean you have to put up with the crap. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
I love
And
that.
and in my books, there's a lot of biological family in my books for my characters, and they're not very nice.
Yeah.
But that's like real life sometimes,
Yep, real life,
like
I was just gonna say
and
that.
they're the reasons, they're the catalyst behind why my characters can't fall in love. They're core wounds in
yeah.
some of my books,
Yeah,
yeah, because it's powerful.
it really is strongest support, but also, like, some of the worst hindrances you could
Right,
face.
right.
Yeah. So you had mentioned your father suffers with PTSD, and I had saw the author's note at the beginning of the book where you mentioned that. So what was it like writing then for somebody in an episode that's suffering with that?
It was easy
Mhm,
because I watched my father have episodes,
Mm,
all my life,
mhm.
and I watched how my mother dealt with them,
mm,
and so that part came easy. I'm incredibly proud of my dad, and I'm incredibly
Yeah.
proud of my mom
mm,
because she stuck by him and supported him and kept the family together, and my dad did all the hard work to make sure that he didn't become a statistic.
Mhm.
mm,
And it was painful, because
yeah.
it was hard not to, think of my dad in those times because
Yeah.
it's horrible. I can't imagine, but I did the best that I could.
Mhm.
My dad had his first flashback when I was 12 years old, and I'll never forget it. And I got a lot of information about what was going on by
Mm,
sitting in my doorway at night, pretending to be asleep, or laying in my bed, pretending to be asleep, and listening to my mom talk on the phone to my aunt and her friends.
mm,
And so I would hear a lot of what she was going through, what my dad shared, the little that my dad shared with her. I wrote a term paper on it in high school. I did a lot of research on my own, that I could back in the 80s when there was no internet. It wasn't easy. I
mm.
actually walked to the library, look in the card catalog. For those of you who don't know that, go Google it. Who don't know what the Dewey Decimal System is.
Oh my gosh. I hope there's nobody that doesn't know what that.
Right, right? Oh
Mm.
my God, what was I? So total sidebar, shiny moment here. But Dewey Decimal System reminded me of like not everybody thinks like I do because not everybody's old.
I was gonna say, I think you made a comment back, I think at the beginning when we were recording about, somebody taking you out and, like, having you party like you were 30, and
Yeah.
I was gonna make the comment, then, but I didn't, but, I was thinking in my head, I was like, "I'm not even 30 yet."
I know, I was waiting for Becca to make the comment.
I will be in June, okay? It's coming. I'm actually very excited about it.
Aw. Enjoy your 30s. Don't go over 40. I don't recommend it.
That's what one of our best friends, Sarah, she's in her mid-40s now, and that's what she said. She was like, everything changed when I turned 40.
Oh,
She was like, I stopped caring about everybody else. She's like, if you pissed me off, like, I'm going to tell you, you pissed me off.
Yep. Yeah, we have no fucks left to give.
I can't wait.
Yeah. And then when you get in your 50s and the menopause thing is no joke.
Ugh.
Yeah, just just
Well,
try to.
now these days, I feel like everybody's going through perimenopause, and it's coming earlier now, and it's
Yeah.
just a crapshoot. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
It's a
off
good
of
excuse to lose your shit and yell at people too.
I can't wait to have an excuse to do that.
honestly, I don't think in the world that we're living in right now, I don't think we need an excuse, really.
Right,
No.
exactly. Exactly.
No, ever since COVID, I always like use the line where it's like, life is short, put up your Christmas decorations in June if you want to, like, who cares?
Yep. Do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
So before we play a game, the last question we did have was, what's next for you?
So, what's next for me? Should be working on the Viper prequel that comes out in July, but I'm not. I will get the book out in July for my newsletter subscribers, and then I will publish it afterwards for everybody else. And, I have an outline. I have started working on it. But there's a book that's been sitting on my laptop since 2022 that I'm 70,000 words into. And I keep opening up and playing with it. And I finally booked an editor. So I
That's
want
so
to get that
exciting.
brand new series. It'll be a standalone. It'll be like Knights of the Heart, where it's a standalone right now, but there
Okay.
is
Right.
series potential that I will absolutely write. But it's been sitting there, and it's like I really, really like it. And I've had people read the first few chapters, and they seem to like it too. And I just shouldn't let it dangle out there unfinished. Like, these characters are so close to their happy ever after.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Is
so
it also
exciting.
a military romance?
He's ex-military. Trying
Okay.
to clear his name. He was kicked out of the military. Him and his buddies were set up, and they are trying to clear their name. So it'll be a
Ooh.
romantic suspense. The plans are aggressive because I hope to get the fourth Viper book out next year too. They actually scare the crap out of me when I think about it, and I really don't know how I'm going to pull it off, but I will.
Okay.
Because that's what you do
Alright.
when you're in your 50s.
Yeah. All right, Cassie, let's play this game. I'm
Okay.
excited.
Me too. I have
So-
no idea what this game is about.
It's called Too Dangerous or Just Misunderstood. So I'm going to name a famous dangerous character. All of them are fictional. I could have picked real ones, but I feel like real ones are we should just keep them dangerous. Yeah. And you have to decide if they're truly dangerous or if they're just misunderstood. So I know you like Marvel. So the first one I have for you is Loki.
Dangerous. I'm not a Loki fan. Yeah, he's a bad. He's creepy.
Oh,
He's a bad
no,
boy.
no.
Sorry.
Loki is my number 2 favorite Marvel character ever.
Aw.
Have you watched the series that they made
No,
for
I
him?
haven't. No, I've
Okay,
just seen like
so
the mainstream movies.
that series changed my perspective of him being dangerous to him being misunderstood.
Okay.
So I have a little more context, but I am a Loki stan. So I'm not going to weigh in on this one.
My favorite Marvel character is Bucky Barnes, if you can't tell.
Okay.
So he was my next one.
My Bucky.
Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Dangerous
yeah,
or
Totally
misunderstood.
misunderstood. He's
Yeah.
dark and broody. He just needs a hug.
I
Yes.
agree. I thought
Right?
the same thing.
Yeah. And I don't want to hug Loki. I'm just not attracted to Loki. So maybe that's
I
why,
get that though.
like I chose the wrong way for Becca. Please share my
No,
episode.
I'm on your side.
But yeah, but
Kristie.
I love Bucky.
I'm on your side.
All right. Well, I guess we're canceling the podcast altogether and not recording anymore because Cassie says she's on your side. So I'm out.
Cassie and I are going to have to start our own podcast. then.
Yep, sorry.
And I don't have
Okay.
time for that. So sorry, Cassie, you're stuck with Becca.
Darth Vader.
Oh, misunderstood because
Okay.
and because I Rebecca said, you watched what you watched, and it gave you a deeper understanding of Loki. And so if I didn't know, if I wouldn't have watched the first 3 that they did after, the original 3,
Yeah,
I wouldn't have the empathy that I do for Darth Vader.
I agree.
I have empathy, but I think he's dangerous. I really do. There's nothing scarier than somebody who literally has no limbs and is laying on the side of the volcano being like, I hate you.
Oh, he's absolutely dangerous. I wouldn't want to piss him off, but
No.
I understand where
Yeah.
it comes from.
I think, just like a whole little side note, if the Jedi weren't so black and white in the prequel, he would have never gone the path that he ended up
Right.
going. So I do think he just wasn't seen by anybody.
That's a really interesting theory. I like that theory, Cassie.
My husband's a big Star Wars nerd, so I've heard them all.
So is mine. Mine's
Yeah.
in Marvel and Star Wars too.
Same.
He just recently watched all of the Marvel movies and how they published them in chronological order and
I
all
love
of
that.
all of the series, and then he did the same thing with Star Wars.
We just did that with Star Wars.
Yes.
Okay, hot take, Tamlin.
There is a correct answer.
For us, there is.
I wasn't sold on Tamlin in the first book. I
Okay.
wasn't a big fan. I kind of thought that he was whiny.
Okay.
And I really loved his name is escaping me now.
Lucian.
Not Lucian. The Farah's guy. What's his name?
Resand.
Right? I really I was so intrigued by him. Like I knew that there was something more to him.
Yeah.
And so that really overtook Tamlin for me. The
Mhm.
scenes with Rasan just so outshone the scenes with Tamlin.
Yeah.
And I had read right before I had read A Throne of Glass before A Court of Thorn and Roses, and she kind of did the same thing. Like in the beginning of Throne of Glass, she was with Prince Dorian,
Yeah.
and then in the second book, she moved, she's not with him, and then she has another love interest. And so I kind of thought that that's what she was doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really loved Tamlin in the first book, and then he really just destroyed everything for me. Everything.
We very strongly believe that he has no room for redemption.
Yeah, I don't know that she can pull that off.
I don't
Mm-mm.
either.
She tried. He had a redemption arc. Not really.
Yeah.
Not enough.
But if he got his own book, I don't know how that would work out.
No, I agree with that.
I don't need that to occur.
No. What about Snape?
Snape? I think Snape was misunderstood. Wait, who
Mhm.
was Snape?
Snape was the potions professor. He knew Harry's parents. He went to school with them. He was like in love with Harry's mom.
Oh, yeah. I think I have empathy for him because he was in love with Harry's mom. So yeah, misunderstood. Yeah.
I go back
So
and forth with him
misunderstood.
all the time.
Yeah.
I really do think part of him was misunderstood, but he still
He
joined Voldemort.
Yeah.
He manipulated both sides, or he
really
played
did.
both sides really well, and that's like dangerous to me. So I'm
dangerous.
like, you
Yeah,
were too good at that.
I
But you
agree.
can be both, like you can be
Yeah.
dangerous and still be misunderstood.
Two things can exist at the same time.
So last one is Thanos.
I think Thanos is way dangerous. Yeah. Thanos
Yeah.
scares me. Yeah. He's bad news.
There is no misunderstood about Thanos. There's
No.
no
That's
backstory that would.
Get the
Cassandra.
idea of like he thinks he's helping, but
Right.
he's so
Cassandra.
terrible at it.
Yeah.
No.
And it just goes back to, a villain is the hero of their own story, right?
That's so true.
I'm going to rid the planet of everybody who I think shouldn't be here. And that's because I'm my own hero and I think I'm right and everybody
Yeah.
else should agree with me.
But he wasn't even handpicking who he got rid of.
Cassandra,
Like he just said there
stop.
should be less.
Defending Thanos.
I can't help it. There's a
No.
I understand the logic of there's too many people on this planet some days.
So genocide.
No, Becca. Nobody said that. I understand the logic of being like we need to help the earth. Like there's too many people. I obviously don't agree with killing off half of those people. Jesus.
Well, what a great spot to end on.
Jeez.
Well, we thank you so much for being willing to talk so much more about your series and just like book things and penises and Thanos. We do have our socials and Kristie does have her socials. And so we will make sure that we link all of that for you when we post the episode.
Mhm.
Please go give her a follow, buy her books, give her the attention that she definitely deserves because
Yes.
obviously she is a wonderful human being and also a wonderful author
Aw,
and writer.
thank
So
you.
yes, you're
Thank you
welcome.
for having me. This was a blast.
Yes. So with everything, until the next chapter, everyone stay cunning, stay brave, and remember you are your own high lady.